They don't regret losing you when you're still waiting. They don't miss you when you're still available. And they don't fear losing you when you're still playing their game. The truth is, an avoidant ex only starts to feel the weight of their choices when you do the one thing they never expected: walk away for good. Not in silence, not in hope, but in truth. Because when you truly leave, when you take your energy, your attention, your love, and your presence away, you create something they can't control: uncertainty. And if there's one thing an avoidant fears more than attachment, it's losing their sense of control. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's what walking away is. It's reclaiming your power. It's not about making them miss you. It's about removing yourself from a situation that no longer serves you. And paradoxically, that's when they start to feel it. Because as long as they believe you're still emotionally invested, they're comfortable. They know you'll always be there, waiting, hoping, hurting. But when you walk away and mean it, that's when regret creeps in. That's when the avoidant ex who thought they were safe starts to question everything. You see, avoidants don't process emotions the way you do. They don't feel the loss immediately. At first, they might even feel relief. But over time, something shifts. Your absence creates a void, a space where they once expected you to be. And when they realize that space is permanent, when they see that you're no longer orbiting around them, that's when the regret hits. That's when they start to wonder if they made a mistake, if you were actually the one who got away. But let's be clear, this isn't about manipulation. This isn't about walking away just to trigger regret. That's still playing the game. No, this is about choosing yourself. Walking away because you refuse to settle for breadcrumbs. Because you deserve someone who meets you where you are, not someone who runs every time things get real. As Seneca said, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. The real power isn't in their regret. It's in the new life you build once you let go. And when they come back, because many of them will, you won't be the same person they left. They'll try the same tactics, the same push-pull dynamics, but it won't work. Because you've changed. Because you've outgrown their patterns. And when they realize they can no longer affect you the way they once did, that's when their true regret sets in. But by then, it won't matter. Because you'll be too busy living a life that doesn't include them. So don't sit there waiting for them to realize your worth. Don't waste another second hoping they'll wake up and see what they lost. Instead, focus on yourself. Heal. Grow. Become someone they can't get back. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you've leveled up so much that they no longer have a place in your world. That's the real victory. That's the true power. Now, I want you to do something for yourself. In the comments, write this mantra: I choose myself. I walk away with strength. I am no longer waiting. Declare it. Own it. Let it be a reminder that you are the prize, not them. And if you're ready to step into this new mindset, join the Ace Wisdom family by becoming a channel member. Click the link in the description. Your support helps us create deeper, high-quality content to keep you focused and growing. Ace Wisdom presents Why Walking Away Makes an Avoidant. Ex regret losing you. Let's get started. Stay focused. Reason number 1. Walking away shatters their illusion of control. An avoidant X thrives on control, not just physical space, but emotional control. They push and pull, keeping you at arm's length while making sure you never fully leave. As long as they sense that you're still emotionally invested, they remain comfortable. They believe they can return when they choose, that your feelings will always be available to them. But when you walk away, not as a strategy, but as a decision rooted in self-respect, you break that illusion. Suddenly, they're no longer in control of the narrative. And that is when the regret begins to creep in. Control is an avoidance safety net. It allows them to feel secure without getting too close, to keep you tethered without committing. They test your patience, knowing that eventually you'll reach out, break the silence, or leave the door open just wide enough for them to return. But when that pattern is disrupted, when they realize you're truly gone, it sends them into unfamiliar territory. Now, they're the ones feeling uncertain. Now, they're the ones wondering what went wrong. The philosopher Epictetus once said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." That's exactly what happens when you walk away. You shift the dynamic from reacting to their avoidance to controlling your own path. And the moment they sense that you're no longer playing their game, that you've stopped seeking their validation, they start to panic. Because suddenly their usual tactics no longer work. At first, they might act indifferent. They might pretend they don't care, convincing themselves that you'll eventually come back like you always have. But as time passes and you remain distant, something changes. The certainty they once had about you begins to fade. Doubt replaces their confidence. And the person they once took for granted starts to feel like a real loss. That's when the regret sets in, not because they've suddenly become emotionally available, but because they no longer hold the power they once did. But here's the most important part. Their regret doesn't mean they've changed. It doesn't mean they're ready to love you the way you deserve. Many avoidants only chase what they think they've lost, not because they've had a true epiphany, but because they miss the control they once had. And if you let them back in too easily, the cycle repeats. They get what they want, your attention, your energy, and then retreat all over again. That's why walking away isn't just about making them regret losing you. It's about reclaiming your power. It's about making a choice that isn't dictated by their inconsistency. And by the time they realize what they've lost, you'll be too far ahead, too evolved, too focused on your own growth to even entertain the idea of going back. That's real strength. That's real freedom. And that's what they never saw coming. Reason. 2. Your absence creates emotional discomfort. They can't ignore. Avoidants are experts at emotional detachment. They tell themselves they don't need deep connection, that distancing themselves is just part of who they are. But here's the truth. They don't avoid emotions because they don't feel them. They avoid them because they do. And when you walk away for good, you force them to confront something they've spent their entire lives running from: emotional discomfort. As long as you're present, even in the background, they don't have to face the reality of loss. You're still an option. They can still imagine that if they ever wanted to return, you'd be there. But when you truly disappear, when you remove your energy from their world, something shifts. The absence you leave behind isn't just noticed, it's felt. And avoidants struggle with feelings they can't easily suppress. Seneca once said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity." for he is not permitted to prove himself. Avoidants create their own adversity by pushing away love, and when you walk away, they're left with an emptiness they weren't prepared for. At first, they may convince themselves that they prefer the solitude, that life is easier without emotional attachment. But with time, that emptiness grows louder. They start to feel something unfamiliar, discomfort they can't escape from. See, avoidants don't process emotions in real time like others do. Their regret is often delayed. While you might feel the pain of loss immediately and work through it, they suppress it, bury it, distract themselves. But suppression isn't the same as healing. Eventually, that emotional weight catches up with them. They might see something that reminds them of you. They might have a moment of vulnerability where they crave the connection they pushed away. And when they realize that reaching out to you is no longer an option, regret floods in. This is why walking away is so powerful. It forces them to experience what they feared all along, being left with their own unresolved emotions. They're no longer avoiding you. They're avoiding the emptiness your absence created. And that's something they can't run from forever. But here's where most people make a mistake. When the avoidant starts to feel this discomfort, they will test the waters. A random message, a casual check-in, maybe even an attempt to rekindle things. But remember, this doesn't always mean they've changed. More often than not, they just want relief from the discomfort. They want reassurance that you're still emotionally available. That's why your strength lies in not giving them the easy way out. By maintaining your distance, you ensure that their regret leads to real reflection, rather than just another cycle of avoidance and return. And by the time they realize just how much they lost, you'll already be at peace with the fact that you never needed them to regret losing you in the first place. Reason 3. They realize you were the only one who truly understood them. Avoidants spend their lives keeping people at a distance, building walls instead of bridges. They tell themselves they don't need deep emotional connections, yet, ironically, they crave understanding just as much as anyone else. The difference? They fear it. Because to be truly understood means to be seen, and to them, that feels like vulnerability, something they've spent years avoiding. But here's what they don't realize until it's too late. You were the person who saw past their defenses. You understood them in a way others never could. And when you walk away, that's when they start to feel the void. You see, most people don't have the patience to deal with an avoidance push-pull nature. They don't stick around when things get complicated. But you did. You recognized their fears, their struggles, the way they pulled back even when they wanted to stay. You gave them space while still showing them love. And deep down, they knew that. They may have never admitted it, but they felt it. And that's what makes your absence hit differently. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When you were in their life, you brought a certain warmth, a certain emotional safety they never fully acknowledged. But now, that warmth is gone, and suddenly the cold reality of their own detachment starts to sink in. They may have thought they preferred solitude, but now they're realizing that solitude without your presence feels empty. At first, they might convince themselves that someone else will come along. Someone who won't ask for emotional depth. Someone who won't expect them to show up in a meaningful way. And maybe they even try, but it won't take long for them to notice the difference. Other people might entertain them, distract them, even validate them for a while. but they won't understand them. They won't make them feel seen in the way you did. And that's when regret truly begins to settle in. But here's the thing. By the time they realize this, you're already gone. Because you're not sitting around waiting for them to have an epiphany. You're not hoping they'll wake up one day and suddenly be emotionally available. You've moved on, evolved, and found peace in the fact that you deserve more than someone who only values you in hindsight. That's why walking away is so powerful. It forces them to experience a truth they spent so long avoiding. That real connections don't come around every day. That people who truly understand them are rare. And that once those people are gone, they don't always come back. And when they finally realize this, it won't be because you begged them to see your worth. It'll be because they lost the one person who already did. Reason 4. They realize no one else will tolerate their avoidance like you did. Avoidants move through relationships believing that if things get too intense, too close, or too emotional, they can always leave and find someone new. Someone who won't challenge them. Someone who won't ask for emotional depth. But here's the mistake they make. Most people won't tolerate their behavior the way you did. Most won't stay patient through the hot and cold cycles. And when they finally experience this, they start to realize just how rare you were. You see, avoidants aren't used to being held accountable. They expect that when they pull away, the other person will chase. That when they create distance, you'll bridge the gap. And, for a while, you probably did. You tolerated the emotional unavailability, the mixed signals, the moments where they seemed close only to withdraw again. Not because you didn't see the pattern, but because you cared. You believed in them. You believed that deep down there was someone worth waiting for. But now they're realizing something brutal. The next person won't put up with it. The next person won't stay when the push-pull dynamic starts. They won't try to understand the emotional walls. They won't see the avoidance as something to work through. They'll see it as a red flag. And this is where regret begins to settle in. Because suddenly, the comfort they had with you, the safety net of knowing you wanted to make things work, is gone. The philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And that's the exact moment of reckoning for an avoidant when they realize they've lost you. They can't manipulate the situation anymore. They can't rely on the same cycles. They start to see that you were the exception, not the rule. And when they finally get hit with this truth, it's no longer just about losing you. It's about realizing that they may never find someone as patient, as understanding, as willing as you were. At first, they might brush it off, tell themselves they're better off alone, or that the next person will be different. But when the new connection falls apart, or never even begins to reach the emotional depth they had with you, that's when the realization hits. You weren't the problem. Their avoidance was. And now? They're left with nothing but their own emotional walls, and no one willing to break them down. But here's where your power lies. By the time they figure this out, you will have already moved forward. You'll no longer be the person who waits, who hopes, who tolerates the emotional roller coaster. You'll be someone who values consistency, reciprocity, and emotional maturity. And the ultimate regret for an avoidant? It's not just losing you. It's realizing that even if they came back, they no longer have access to the person who once would have taken them back. Reason 5. They see you thriving without them. Nothing makes an avoidant question their choices more than seeing you move on. Not just with someone new, but with your life. When you walk away and truly focus on yourself, something shifts. You stop waiting, you stop hoping, you stop revolving your world around them. And that's when they start to feel the weight of what they lost. Not when you're hurting, not when you're silent, but when you're thriving. Avoidants operate under the belief that the people they push away will always remain emotionally tied to them. They assume that because they struggled with attachment, you will too. That deep down, you'll always hold space for them. But when they see you genuinely happy, growing, and unbothered by their absence, it shatters that illusion. Suddenly, they're not the ones who walked away from you. You're the one who left them behind. And that is something they never expected. The philosopher Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." And that's exactly what happens when you stop wasting time waiting for an avoidant to change. You redirect your energy towards yourself, your goals, your passions, your well-being. You build a life that is so fulfilling that their absence becomes insignificant. And trust me, they notice. Maybe they see you glowing on social media. Maybe they hear about your successes through mutual friends. Or maybe they just sense the change in your energy, the way you no longer reach out, no longer wait for them, no longer seem affected by their absence. And that's when the regret sets in. Because now, they're not just dealing with the loss of you, they're dealing with the realization that you never needed them in the first place. At first, they might try to convince themselves that it's just an act, that you're pretending to be okay. But as time goes on, and they see you truly evolving, they start to wonder, was I wrong? Did I let go of something real? And that's when they start reaching out, testing the waters, trying to find a way back in. But by then, it's too late. Because the most powerful thing you can do after walking away, make sure there's nothing for them to come back to. That's why your focus should never be on making them regret losing you. Your focus should be on becoming someone you are proud of, someone who no longer looks back. Because when you do that, when you shift from waiting to winning, their regret becomes irrelevant. By the time they realize what they lost, you'll already be living a life that makes them wish they had chosen differently. And that's the real victory. The final realization, and your next move. By now, you see the truth. Walking away isn't just about making an avoidant ex regret losing you. It's about freeing yourself. It's about stepping out of the cycle of emotional push and pull and reclaiming your power. Because when you stop chasing, when you stop waiting, when you finally put yourself first, that's when they start to realize what they lost. But here's the key. Their regret is no longer your problem. They may come back. They may test the waters. They may try to pull you back into their cycle. But you've changed. You're no longer the person who tolerates half-hearted love, emotional distance, and inconsistency. And that is what will truly leave them shaken. Not just losing you, but realizing they have no way of getting you back. And if they do return, if they reach out, but still act distant, that's where your real test begins. Because just because they regret losing you doesn't mean they've changed. It doesn't mean they're ready to offer you the love, the commitment, or the emotional security you deserve. So what does it really mean when an avoidant ex comes back but still acts distant? And more importantly, what should you do? That's exactly what we're covering in the next video. Avoidant ex returns, but acts distant. What it means. Click the link on the screen or in the description to watch it now. And before you go, comment below, "I choose myself." declare it, own it. Because this is the moment where you stop waiting for their regret and start living your truth. If this video gave you value, hit that like button, subscribe, and join the Ace Wisdom family by becoming a channel member. Your support helps us create powerful content to guide you through your journey. Click the link in the description to become a member today. Stay strong, stay focused, and I'll see you in the next video. Ace Wisdom presents Avoidant X returns, but acts distant. What it means.